All I know about football is it's lots of people running around, chasing the stomach of a cow, falling over, pretending they're really hurt,
often when they haven't even been touched,
and going home with a massive check.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why?
It's a good question. I mean, one of the big drivers is you might know I've got a little baby due this year.
No, I didn't mean why are you doing football. I just meant football. Why?
Right. That's a question I can't even begin to answer. But why am I off to do football? Little baby on the way, due the first day of the new Formula One season, and 4 years of babysitting EJ was probably kind of enough for me. And it's time for a new challenge. And it is, when you're doing that job, you're on the road all the time. March to November, you're constantly travelling. And I just needed a bit of time to be at home, to be with Harriet. And the BT Sport job offer was a really amazing opportunity. So it was, the end of an era. And I think in some ways, we're not live at every race now. And I think, the best it was ever going to be for me was probably 2009, 10 and 11. Those for me were the standout years of my F1 career. And although it was still good after that, it wasn't the same. And it just felt like, maybe everything had sort of come to a natural end.
I think it may be a secret to some people that you love all sports, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I just love sport. I love top level, top quality sport. And it doesn't matter what it is, I'll sit and watch it.
You're not a petrol head.
I suppose I am, but I'm not just a petrol head. Some people are into motorsport and they love motorsport and that's it. They can't imagine any other sport. Whereas I love rugby, I love football. Of course, I love motorsport as well. I'll go off and watch touring cars on my weekend off or something like that. But I can appreciate other stuff as well.
So you started in 2009, and what a way to start. Melbourne, Jenson Button, out of a job, brand new car, out of nowhere, and...
It was amazing. I mean, I remember when I first got the job, obviously Steve Ryder was the person who was the host of Formula One before me. And he very kindly rang me up out of the blue and said, look, why don't we go for some lunch and I'll tell you what the job is about. And he was brilliant to me, Steve. And he said to me, however much knowledge you've already got of Formula One, times it by 100, double it, and you'll still be some way short of knowing everything that you need to know. So, never try and know everything. Just try and bring the audience closer to the sport. And as we came to the end of this dinner, which I paid for, he said, and the good thing is, having had Lewis just having won the title in Brazil, you'll never get a season as good as that again. And then obviously we went and got this amazing Honda leaving the sport, Brawn GP, Phoenix from the Flames act with Jenson Button. And I'll never, for as long as I live, ever have a moment as a broadcaster that will match when Jenson became the world champion. And we were in the garage because Brawn GP had said to us, we're not going to discuss what happens when Jenson wins the title. We're not going to talk about it. And we said, but we need to be in that garage. We have to be there when Jenson becomes the world champion. We're the British broadcaster. He's a British driver. This is a massive British sporting story. And they said, well, if we talk about it, we'll jinx it. So we didn't know what was going to happen. And then midway through the race, finally we got the phone call to our boss from Nicola, who ran the Brawn GP press office. And she said, look, if you get in the garage at the end of the race, we'll do our best to get Jenson to you. So that was the first time that we knew we'd even get an interview with him. You saw after this year, Sebastian Vettel becomes the world champion, didn't get to chat to him. So it's not always guaranteed that you'll get the drivers. And that was to get Jenson at that moment when he'd achieved something that I think maybe he thought would never happen because he didn't even think he had a drive 9 months previously was amazing. And to be able to bring people that close to it was what was important for us on the BBC.
Were you surprised by the way Formula One embraced you? Did you get lots of help? Were they nice to you? Because it is the Piranha Club, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Formula One was great to me. It was a difficult time. I remember when I first got offered the job, the bosses said, look, don't tell anybody that you're going to be the new Formula One presenter. So we kept it a complete secret. And then it got announced on a Thursday morning in November at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I was so excited about this big announcement that I was going to be the new F1 presenter. And then my wife rang me at 10:30. And she was in floods of tears. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, I've just been on the internet. Everyone thinks you're going to be rubbish. And I thought, oh, God, that's not a good start, is it? So I said to her, well, look, this is a high-profile job. Where did you read that? And she said, on the BBC Sport website. I was like, oh, my God. So, it was a huge sort of proving ground, really, those first few races, to say to people, look, I just want to come in and do this job and do it to the best of my abilities. And there are people now still who look at me and say, who's that lanky div who was once on children's BBC? Get him off my TV, I'm not interested. But there were people like that at the time, and my job was to try and prove them wrong. And so, using Twitter or using the blogs, I'm just a bloke from Norwich who's the son of a charity worker and a teacher who got the chance to go into the mad world of Formula One. My life is so different from David Coulthard, Eddie Jordan's, Jenson Button's, Sebastian Vettel's. It's so different. But I got the chance to experience their life and hopefully brought you guys closer to the life that they have, which was always the aim,
I think you did bring a sort of humble, sort of grateful sort of approach to it. Yeah. It was a sort of, sort of inviting people in, really.
Yeah, I think that was the aim, really, was just to try and... when we did the Jenson Button thing in the garage, I got a letter from a woman saying, it was so good to be in the garage with you and Jenson, that was absolutely amazing. And I thought, why didn't she come and say hello? Then at the end of the letter, she wrote, so thanks for taking me from my living room and putting me in that garage. And I cannot tell you the number of times I've been told off in the last 4 years. We would because what would happen is we would say to Ferrari, who are like the most difficult team to get anything from. People always say, why do you never interview Fernando Alonso? We ask every race to interview Fernando Alonso. Every single race. Can we have Fernando? No, he's a busy. Okay, no problem.
Stefano Domenicali didn't mind.
Yeah, Stefano would always talk to us, but that's because we could never get the drivers, so we'd always speak to Stefano. And they would always say, oh, you can stand at the front of the garage, you no go in the garage. So when we're live on air, I'm thinking to myself, well, everyone's at home watching, no one can really stop me. So I would sort of walk in, crouch down next to the car, touch the front wing, show the car inside the cockpit, maybe touch the driver's helmet, and we would get letter after letter from Ferrari or McLaren, all sorts of teams saying, you shouldn't be doing that. Stop. But it was so good for the coverage. It took people into areas that they'd never been before. I think it was important.
I should just say, folks, Jake's got a pair of tickets for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone to give to one of you.
Ooh, which I also need myself now.
Yeah.
So it might be that I have to find a way of getting myself those tickets.
If the questions aren't very good, you just hang on to them.
Yeah, great.
David's in the corner there.
Or if you win it, just take me as your guest, because I could do with access to a Grand Prix at some time.
David's down there with a microphone, so we'll do that in a second, give you a chance to think of something juicy. EJ, DC, sum that up for us.
It's been emotional.
I fear there may be an impression or two coming.
Okay, I'll give you... Well, my favourite sort of EJ-ism, and this sort of thing carried on right till the very end, is that normally with about 20 seconds left before they come back to us live on the television, Eddie Jordan pulls out his earpiece and he leans into me and he says, "What are you going to ask me?" And I tell him the question. And he puts his earpiece back in because we have these sort of solid ear defenders so you can't hear each other just because the cars are so loud. And he stands there and he sort of stares into oblivion like he's formulating some amazing answer that's going to blow the socks off the BBC audience and get people tuning into every show we do. And I think, God, Eddie, I love you. Look at you, working hard, thinking of a brilliant answer. Then with about 5 seconds left, he pulls his earpiece out again and he leans in and he goes, "What am I going to say?" I was like, I can't do this for another year. I've got to go. But it's been great. And DC is remarkable. I think he's become a brilliant co-commentator. But you just can't get the guy's heart beat up. We would come off air and I would be physically wrecked after like a 4-hour live show. And I'd be like, how was that, DC? He's like, not quite like driving through a Rouge at 200 miles an hour, wheel to wheel with Michael Schumacher. But it was all right. And you're thinking, God, okay, nothing's ever going to match that, is it? But it's been brilliant, and I've loved working with them both. And I was quite lucky that when I first started, they were complete rookies. So we sort of had an agreement, really. I said, look, if ever my knowledge isn't up to scratch where it should be, don't embarrass me. And I won't ask you questions that you don't want to answer or make your lives difficult, because I know about making good telly, and you know about Formula One, so let's just work together and make this a success. And I will really miss them. We have genuinely become brilliant friends. And I don't want to be gone forever. I suppose, I see myself walking away from Formula One for maybe 2, 3, 4 years. But I would love to come back. I'd quite like Eddie and David to sort of both retire now, and then we'll all return in a blaze of glory in 4 years' time and do the whole thing all over again. But that's wishful thinking. But I would love to stand in the paddock or the pit lane with them again, and do live Formula One with them in the future at some point.
Quick word about the book before we throw it open to the crowd. The book's out, well received, I think.
Thanks very much to everyone that bought a copy. Did I enjoy writing it? No, I didn't. Everyone goes, so did you write it yourself? I'm like, yes, I bloody did write it myself, and I'm knackered still. It's so much work writing it. Have you written a book? Yeah. Oh, was yours well received?
No.
Right.
No. They have no idea who I am.
So I wanted to write a book about Formula One. It was never meant to be stories about my time in the sport. It was meant to almost do in a similar way to how we've done with the coverage. It was to try and just explain to people more about the sport so they understand Formula One a little bit more. And I agreed to do this book 2 years ago, right? And then for the first year, I just sort of thought about it but didn't do anything about it. And then a year ago, from when they needed the copy, the publisher rang me and said, "Oh, so you've got now a year till your book's going to be delivered." I'm like, "Yes, a year." And they're like, "How much have you done?" I said, "Oh, I'm formulating." And then Harriet, she said to me, because I never went to university, she said, when I went to university, I did a dissertation, and I was like, "Yeah, I remember reading it." And it was 8,000 words. And that's how many words each chapter was. She said, "You've got to write a dissertation a month for the next 12 months and do your job and live your life. So I think you better get going." So then it was just this mad panic. And I didn't really go out for the first sort of 6 or 7 races of the 2012 season. I just stayed in my room while everybody else went out drinking, I should say water, because they're paid by the BBC, but caipirinhas, beers, and all sorts of other things, while I stayed in my room writing my book. But hopefully it was worth it. And, it's been well received, so I'm really happy.
You've been running around the country doing signings, haven't you?
I have,
The mighty Twitter tells me you have.
Yes, yeah, good old Twitter. It's been good. It's people have been turning up. I've been signing things. They've been giving me lots of gifts for the baby. I've worked out the way to have a kid and not have to pay any money is to do lots of book signings, talk about your baby a lot, and people will turn up with blankets and bibs and all sorts of nice things. So, cool. Where are the baby things?
Dave, can you get round there?
Hi, Dave.
Right. Mind the Bentley, mate. That's cost us a fortune. All right. Let's have some hands up. Who wants to go to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone? That's disconcertingly few. Right. Hello there.
Hi, how are you doing? With Lewis's move to Mercedes for this season, do you reckon he stands a chance of finishing higher than Jenson in the driver's standings this year?
It's a great question. I think that's what everyone's waiting to see, is what these new cars are going to look like. I mean, I think Lewis is smart with going to a team that are going to really make a big difference in 2014. And I think Mercedes are absolutely going to be a jump ahead of everybody else. But in terms of 2013, where are they going to be? What is there from 2010, 11 and 12 to make us think that car's going to be fast this year? There's no evidence, is there? So maybe Lewis knows something that we don't know. Maybe they're not going to push the car massively this year at all and then see where they are in 2014. I mean, I know, if you remember, Lewis said, "I'm not going to win a race in 2013." And I can tell you that seriously annoyed Mercedes. That was almost the first thing he said. And I think Mercedes are confident of winning races, but are they confident of winning enough races to finish in front of McLaren? McLaren know what they're doing. Probably not. I worry a little bit for McLaren. I think that they are really going to miss Lewis. I think Lewis is a far greater driver than... obviously, they know how good he is, but I think until you lose someone, you don't appreciate quite what you've had. And I think, personally, Jenson and Sergio is a weak pairing compared to the pairing of Jenson and Lewis Hamilton, because I think they inspired each other, pushed each other on, they wanted to beat each other. And I wonder how much motivation there will be in that team for those guys. Sergio's young, he's got a lot of learning to do because he's now in a big team. He can't afford to have any more bad weekends. I think Lewis will win races, but I think Jenson will probably finish ahead of him in the Drivers' Championship, is the answer to your question, yeah.
Martin Brundle said on Thursday that he'd be surprised if Lewis didn't win a race this year.
Of course. I mean, Mercedes won a race last year with Nico Rosberg behind the wheel. Now, if Nico Rosberg can win a race in that car, Lewis Hamilton can win 2 or 3 races in that car, because I think he's a much quicker driver than Nico. The question is, how good is the car going to be? How good are their opposition going to be? And how much are people thinking about 2014? It's always so difficult, isn't it, with F1, because it's so much about the car. And until they've been on track for the first race of the season, you simply can't answer those kinds of questions. But I think Lewis will look to really push and inspire Mercedes to do something special.
Yeah. Right, let's have another question. There's a young lady round here, David. Keep going. Steady there.
He's just showing off, look.
Hi.
Hello.
Congratulations on the baby. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Question. Who do you think is the most misunderstood F1 driver?
I think the most misunderstood F1 driver... I think a lot of people always say Kimi Räikkönen, but I don't think Kimi Räikkönen is misunderstood at all. I think Kimi Räikkönen is exactly what you see from him. there's no misunderstanding there. We all know he's incredibly fast, and he is. We all know that he doesn't waste words, and he doesn't waste words. We all know that we'd love him to drive for us if we ran our own Formula 1 team. I think the most misunderstood, actually, is Sebastian Vettel. I think Sebastian Vettel is one of the greatest drivers to ever drive a Formula 1 car. And it's rubbish to say, he's just been in a good car, so it doesn't matter. He wasn't in the best car when he won the title in 2010, and he went into that last race with Fernando Alonso as the man that should have won that race. Yes, last year he was in the best car, and guess what? He dominated. Mark Webber didn't dominate, did he? And then the year that we've just seen, Fernando Alonso pushed him all the way. Do you know what the best car was this year? The McLaren. It wasn't the Red Bull. The McLaren was the better car in Formula 1 in 2012. Neither of those drivers managed to do it. And look who did, Sebastian Vettel. And look at those performances after the summer break. With 4 or 5 wins on the spin after the summer break. No one else seems to be able to do that. And whatever Seb can do to turn the wick up at the right time, he can do it. And I think, as always with these things, only when he retires, only in 20 or 30 years, will we all look back and say, man, that was an amazing period. That guy was 23 and he won a triple world championship with the same team. And I think it's absolute rubbish to say he has to move teams to show that he's great. No one questions Sir Jackie Stewart. He won his race. He won his championships with Tyrrell. Fantastic. No one questions Michael Schumacher. He won his championships, okay, a couple with other teams, but he won his championships with Ferrari. That's where he dominated. He wasn't a weak driver. He was one of the greats as well. And yeah, I think Sebastian probably deserves more credit than he gets.
Cool. Right, we've got time for one more. Chap down here at the front, Dave, with the camera.
My lads, ask you about your broadcasting move.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Ask me about anything.
This is going to be dodgy. Apart from your chance to do flatulence and bit your nose, what other things were you thinking of doing during your commercial breaks now you're not with a beeb?
Very good question. What am I going to do during my commercial breaks?
Shout at all those footballers throwing themselves at
probably,
pretending to be hurt.
It's going to be weird actually introducing ad breaks. I've never had the chance to do that because the BBC's brilliant, but then some things are a complete nightmare. I remember when we did the Super Bowl, which is a show built for adverts. And I said, yeah, of course I'll present that without actually thinking that 3/4 of the time you'll be talking. You won't be watching sport because the Super Bowl is mainly ads. So I don't know what it's going to bring. But I feel like I felt in 2008. When I got offered that Formula 1 job, I felt like I was completely out of my comfort zone. And I remember going to China with Mark Wilkin, who was the program editor at that time, and we went to watch ITV on air. And I stood in the garage in the Red Bull garage because DC had invited us in because we knew he was going to be our pundit. And I looked out at Steve Ryder and Mark Blundell, the floor manager and the cameraman, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do that. That looks so scary. That is completely out of my comfort zone. And I really panicked and thought I'd got myself in over my head. And I was with my boss, and he was next to me, and he said, so what are you thinking as you look at that? And I said, I'm thinking I can't wait till that's us. And I absolutely was not thinking that. And I feel the same now about football. BT Sport is a new venture, is a new channel. They're really ambitious. I'm going to be back on the Olympic Park where I enjoyed, one of my sort of proudest moments in 2012, hosting the Olympics. So it'll be a great move, and I take nothing but fond memories of my time in Formula 1. I don't feel that I'm walking away with any unfinished business. It's been fantastic. You guys have all been wonderful to me, and I really hope that the hard work that we put in over the last 4 years has helped you to learn more and see more and know more about the sport. And I wish Susie Perry nothing but the best. I certainly feel personally that Lee McKenzie would have been fantastic for that role, but Susie's got that job, and I think Susie will do it brilliantly.
And she's slightly better looking than you as well.
Oh, she's incredible. Yeah, she's a lot better looking than me. Funnily enough, David and Eddie were both saying to me, oh, it's such a shame you're leaving. And as soon as they announced Susie Perry, I've not heard one thing from them. They obviously don't care anymore. They're like, oh, Susie Perry, is it? Great. See you later, Jake.
She'll knock them into shape.
Absolutely, she will. Yeah,
she's dealt with bikers for 10 years.
She'll do a great job, yeah.
Right, I'm going to award the tickets to someone. Should I do that?
No, I'll let you do it.
I'm going to give them to that young lady there.
Excellent. You're going to Silverstone.
You're going to the British Grand Prix with someone else.
With me.
Don't take him. Don't take him. Can you come round to our reception and make yourself known to the girls, and we'll.
And if he then asks for your mobile number, that's not part of the giveaway. All right.
Right. Slightly threw me. Thanks, mate.
No worries. Nice to chat.
You're all over the place, aren't you, for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I'll be here, there, and everywhere. So feel free to come and say hello, and lovely to see a great turnout. And I love coming to this because it reminds you, doesn't it, how... Because when you're working on Formula 1, you're never around. You're always out of the country. And then you come here and you think, bloody hell, that's how much people love motorsport in this country. It reminds you how important that job is. So lovely to see you all. Thanks for turning up.
We will miss you.
I will miss you all.
Not for very long, but we will.
Yeah.
You're back
until like 10 minutes into the first programme in Melbourne. You'll be like, who was the guy again? That sort of lanky bloke from CBBC. God, he was bad.
You're back at 2:45, so we'll chat again. And in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to Jake Humphrey.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers. Have a good day.